Hi, everybody. This is Trish Causey with Musical Theater Talk. First, I want to welcome you, and I want to say I am so overwhelmed by the great response I've had with this show, Musical Theater Talk. It's been amazing. In fact, today I had a person from a TV station sign up to follow me on Twitter so they know when we're doing shows. I've had people from all over the country tell me they can't wait for the first show. Well, hi, you're here, as well as people as far away as London, England, saying they're going to be tuning in. So I hope everybody were able to just hang out for just a second as we got going here. I am so thrilled to be doing this. Now, there are a few ground rules that you have to understand when you're talking about musical theater. The first ground rule is musical theater people are just weird, okay? We operate on a different wavelength than most people. Music activates the entire brain, the right hemisphere, the left hemisphere. And I read an article once by a neuroscientist who also happens to sing and play the guitar, and he said that no other task makes the brain light up the way music does. He said that when people listen to music, that the brain lights up like a pinball machine. So as opposed to speaking or reading or doing math or science, which uses a lot of the left brain, or when you're feeling and you're expressing and you're emoting, which is right brain, music makes you work out of both hemispheres at the same time. So just chalk it up. Musical theater people, we're different. Second thing you need to know about musical theater people is that we throw lines and quotes into conversations that just are triggered by a word, a phrase, something that's going on in the conversation or around us, and we start quoting movies and shows that we've done in, or we break out into foreign accents. Just if you're new to musical theater and you're new to being around musical theater people, don't be scared. Don't run screaming from the room. Just kind of hang out and just see that musical theater people actually have a lot of knowledge that we don't realize that we have because of our influences with movies and theater. Another thing that you'll notice about musical theater people is that we will burst into song and dance. We'll just start singing at the top of our lungs. We'll break out into a time step with very little provocation. And there's no notice and there's no reason for it. There's just something about us that just makes us want to perform. So if you can understand those basic ground rules and just understand musical theater people are weird, we know way more than we should about music and theater and movies, and that we are actually just performers and hands at heart, then we'll get along just fine. But again, if you're new to musical theater, don't be scared. You'll fit in, no problem. Now, I have two amazing people on the line here. Our first guest, actually this is in no particular order, but my first guest, her name is Sandy Faison, and she trained at Juilliard, and she starred in 6 shows on Broadway, started a company to produce shows by talented writers. I can't wait to apply for that, frankly. She earned acclaim from the LA Times. Her productions won multiple awards, and they took her to produce off-Broadway. She's had recurring roles in daytime television, several primetime series, and numerous special appearances on TV. Sandy, I don't know if she actually wants me to say this or not. I'm sure she gets asked about Annie all the time, but she was the original Grace in the original production of Annie on Broadway. My second guest is B. Michael Howard. He's a professor of musical theater at Tulane University in New Orleans, go Green Wave, and he has directed, performed in, conducted, been a vocal coach for just about every musical theater show you can name. And throw in some opera and operetta, he has done it all. He works both in the cultivated tradition as well as in the vernacular tradition, and I hope we'll talk about that a little bit. And he has performed at the Kennedy Center and the White House. So if I can click on the right buttons here, I'm going to open up the lines and make sure that we have our people here. Hey, Sandy, are you there?
You betcha.
Hey, and hey, I can absolutely hear you. Thank you so much. And Michael, are you here?
I'm right here.
Hey, how are you doing?
Fine. Fine now that I can hear you and we're talking.
Okay. First of all, I just want to say thank you both to doing this. This is a test run, but the response to just the idea of doing something like musical theater talk has been amazing. And so thank you, both of you, for being here today. I want to read a quote that I got off of all things, Wikipedia. Sorry, Michael, I know that's not very academic, but
I'm not very academic.
But it says, and I just want to get some facts straight here, it says Broadway refers to the theatrical performances presented in one of the 39 large professional theaters with 500 seats or more located in the theater district in New York, plus one theater that's in Lincoln Center in Manhattan, New York City. A lot of people don't understand the difference between Broadway and off-Broadway, and I hope we can talk about that. And it says that according to the Broadway League, they said that there were almost $937 million in ticket sales during the 2007-2008 season, which I think is absolutely amazing that 39 theaters could bring that kind of money in. So, Michael, as a professor of musical theater, not professor of theater, not professor of voice, but the Broadway degree, what do we mean when we say we want to be on Broadway? Like, I want to do musical theater. What is musical theater exactly?
Well, musical theater itself, I think of it as an art form rather than just Broadway or a particular show or whatever. But and most wonderful thing about it is it's our true American art form. It happened right here in this country. But in teaching students, I think when most people say, I want to be on Broadway, they're talking about the stage. They want to be a professional performer. They want to do this the rest of their life. They want to be able to make a living at it. They want to do what they have a passion for and what they love. So I think you're talking about several things. But when you say musical theater itself, I think of it as an art form, and that can be awfully stodgy. We have a lot of musical theater history. We have several professors here who teach that. And as wonderful as it is, I'm able to deal with the other side of the actual performing. We have a theater here in the summer that we do 3 full stage-blown musicals in 9 weeks. And
wow.
Big orchestra. Everybody's raving about the orchestra, South Pacific in New York, and it is wonderful. But very seldom, not to step on any toes, but it's one of the few things we can boast. We always have full orchestras, no synthesizers, none of those things. So we usually have a 30 to 32 piece orchestra in the summer here for our big shows. But
wow,
also, now I'm getting off the track, but when you talk about musical theater, it is an art form, it is a history, and it did happen here in America. I think when people say they want to be on Broadway, they're really talking about the stage. I don't know whether it has to be Broadway or not. That's up to the person, Maybe Liza Minnelli's, if you make it anywhere, it has to be in Broadway. But we don't feel that way here. And I think as long as a person's able to use their talent and the thing that they're so passionate about, it seems like you are, you can hear it when you just talk about it, that's the most important thing.
So, Sandy, tell me, what is it like to be a Broadway performer? That I hear about the camaraderie, I hear about the gypsy robe, and I hear about how everybody just goes out, and after the shows at nighttime they go out and hang out at the local cabaret or Don't Tell Mamas or and that is actually a close-knit family. Is it really like that? What's it like on Broadway?
Well, this was many years ago. But yes, it was for me. And even I think what's interesting about it is, by the way, hi, Mr. Howard.
Hello. Nice to meet you. I saw you in Annie.
You too. Anyway, forgive me for that, Trish.
Wait, whoa. Do y'all know each other?
No.
No, we don't.
Oh.
But I've seen her on stage
and I
before.
know his name, and I can't. I mean, so we're meeting over the phone. Here we are.
You're right.
Awesome.
Yes, I think it is unique in the sense of the familial feeling, the family feeling. Of course, obviously, Annie more so than others because there were kids everywhere and dogs everywhere. you couldn't get stuffy or uppity even if you tried, because some dog was going to come in there and, step on your skirt, or, it was very family-oriented. And since it started up at good speed, at that point we didn't have Dorothy Loudon, so there were no names attached, and it was improvised, and, we really gave birth to this piece. So we had a vested interest in it really going well, besides the paycheck. There were a couple things I wanted to say from listening so far, by the way. First off, the musical theater people are weird. I have to agree with that. And I think
I was so hoping y'all wouldn't be offended by that. But
no, I totally agree
I know
with
me.
That. But they're also the reason why I love them. I will do anything for someone in musical theater, and you will not see me do anything for people in television. And the other difference is musical theater people will always work for free.
Yeah.
They will work for free. You have them to a party, they get up, they sing. You have a benefit, they'll get up and sing. The musicians won't. The musicians will need to be paid. But there isn't a musical theater actor alive who won't go anywhere to do a benefit and help out if it involves singing, and preferably, believe it or not, singing with other people. At any day, give me a group song where we can all be together and rehearse harmonies, and it just really get much more delicious than that, It's pretty wonderful.
And sometimes you get the benefit of being paid. I remember when I was doing dinner theater, we got paid $40 a show, but the best benefit that we had was that we got free cheese sticks after the show from the bar.
Anything for free cheese sticks, right?
Exactly.
And then the other thing I wanted to say, I just wanted to clear up one thing. You said I did not graduate from Juilliard. I went to Juilliard my junior year. I had a sort of weird college. I went to Hamilton College, and my freshman year I shot a movie, The Hysterical Cuckoo, with Liza Minnelli. And my sophomore year I went to Second City Theater and worked. My junior year I went to Juilliard. And my senior year I started the neighborhood Playhouse, and I graduated from there as well as Hamilton College. But I went to the neighborhood Playhouse and studied with Sandy Meisner for 2 years. So Juilliard was only my junior year, and I would hate to have that thing be what people claim I did. I'm way more a neighborhood Playhouse graduate, and I'm very, very close to my neighborhood Playhouse friends. But anyway,
I apologize for the confusion.
That's okay. And meanwhile, speaking about Annie, I just had a music party just about 3 weeks ago. And music parties is I make a huge amount of food for like 50, 60 people, and then the price of admission is one song per person. And it was filled with old Annie people, which was really nice. Ray Thorne was there, who played FDR, and Ed Bordeaux, who played Drake, and Bob Fitch, who played Rooster. The party starts and you go to midnight, and then midnight I always do the complete score of West Side Story. So,
wow.
Oh, my gosh.
And I've been doing this in L.A., my party got up to because I lived in L.A. for 20 years, that got up to about 150, 60 people for dinner.
I want an invite. I want to go. I want to be a part of that.
Amazing. And it starts at 6. People eat dinner in about 15 minutes because they cannot wait to start performing and hearing other people perform. And it goes to like 1, 2 in the morning.
Well, Sandy, let me ask you.
For days. You can't speak at all.
Let me ask you about being in Annie, because I'm sure you get asked about this a lot. But, I mean, when you are in a show that's about kids and dogs, which you know the old Hollywood adage of you want to stay away from films that involve kids and dogs. Did you know at the time, could you feel at the time that it was going to become this cornerstone of American musical theater?
No. Not at all. Let me tell you, the most amazing thing was when we opened in New York and I got out of the subway, which I'd been getting out of, for a couple of months or weeks, whatever, and the line went around the block and my knees buckled under me. So it wasn't until that moment after the review came out and I saw the lines going around the block, and I get choked up even thinking about it. My knees buckled, and I sobbed.
How wonderful.
Oh, my gosh.
But I must tell you, I have loved other shows equally, and they've not done well. So you never know. I mean, I did a show called Is There Life After High School, with Harry Groner and Alma Cuervo and Maureen Silliman and David Patrick Kelly and Ray Baker and Jamie Widows. I mean, really amazingly wonderful people with a gorgeous score by Craig Carmelia. And I think we closed in a week. And
wow.
To this day, these people, I hear the music and I still cry. I think it was a beautiful project. It maybe didn't belong on Broadway per se. Maybe it belonged off-Broadway in a much smaller theater. But we all stayed friends. There was none of that catty stuff. Oh, the show didn't work because of her or because of him or because of, you know, who knows? It's a total crapshoot, and I loved that show. I did a show called Charlie and Algernon by Charles Strauss, the same composer of Annie, right? And with a story, you know, was based on Flowers for Algernon. And we were at the Kennedy Center twice. That's how well it went. And we came to New York and we were cremated. So you don't have a clue how it's going to go. So you might as well enjoy each step. Enjoy the first time you hear the orchestra play the music underneath your song. And you might as well enjoy your song because next week it could be cut.
That's right.
I mean, literally, I go day by day. I never think ahead. It would ruin the process for me.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of shows, Sandy, what kind of shows did you do when you were coming up in the ranks of musical theater and Broadway? Because, you know, a lot of little girls want their first big role to be the role of Annie. So what kind of shows did you do when you were coming up and learning and, you know, fighting your way to the top of Broadway?
Well, I really hadn't done many musicals. I was mostly doing comedies and plays. You know, like regional theater, La Ronde. It's not exactly a laugh riot by Schnitzler. You know, I really was doing a lot of different things. But I had done an audition a couple of years before Annie for Martin Charnin on a show called Nash at 9 when I just graduated from the neighborhood Playhouse. And he really liked my audition. And I knew I did a good audition. You had to play all these different, you know, Ogden Nash sort of wacky characters, which I'm eccentric because I'm weird, because I'm a musical theater person. And
hello,
I really
sister.
like that. And I didn't get the show. He went with this exquisite actress older than me, Virginia Vestoff, who had way more experience under her belt. But when I went to an open call for Annie, my agent did not submit me because I had no Broadway credits. And,
oh, my gosh. Are you kidding? That was an open call?
I went to an open call. My agent did not submit me. And I walked in, and Martin Charnin looked at me and said, I remember you, Nash at 9. And then I did 7 auditions, which he wrote about in a book, 7 auditions with 7 different outfits with 7 different accents.
Wow.
Every time I came in, I tried to make a different choice because there was nothing to the part at that point. She was the most boring part I had ever laid eyes on. So I figured I better just make some bold choices, and hopefully one of these will hit.
Right.
And I wore heels and a skirt, which I thought was much smarter than the other girls I saw auditioning in Levi's. I went, gee, secretary to the wealthiest man in the world, I don't think you should wear Levi's, but I didn't tell them that.
Now, when we hear a show like Annie, that's kind of, I think, what most people think of as musical theater, but a lot of people don't realize how musical theater in America started. I've got a couple of stats here I'd like to throw out. Broadway's first long-run musical was a 50-performance hit called The Elves in 1857. I think there are a lot of Broadway shows that would love to have 50 performances nowadays, but the shows that started out, that began on what we could now call Broadway, they were mostly just like vaudeville skits and Tin Pan Alley songs that were combined to make just. It was just a performance of musical and comedy, and not even musical comedy is what we think of it now. But I found this interesting fact. Laura Keene's musical burletta called Seven Sisters began in 1860. It shattered previous New York records with a run of 253 performances. And here's a little bit of trivia in case you're ever on Jeopardy. Laura Keene's musical troupe was the performing troupe of Our American Cousin in Washington, D.C., the performance where John Wilkes Booth shot Abraham Lincoln. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, that's I'm sure Michael Howard knows this, but I did not. So.
But musical theater, it's so hard to define. In fact, when I was applying for a spot at a very famous opera company's composer competition, I didn't make it. I'm not that bitter, but I'll get over it. But, one of the things I wanted to point out with my music, because I'm a composer, is that I have a lot of different influences, and that my musical is a dramatic musical, but it's got elements of opera and classical, as well as elements of Sondheim and elements of, Rag and Dixieland. It's all of my influences. And a lot of people don't know that some of the first true Broadway shows, the first legitimate Broadway show is recognized as Showboat, which is now a standard in American opera.
Right.
And, we move back and forth between what musicals are and what they sound like. And I think that from the 50s, when we have you have Carousel, you have Oklahoma, 50s and 60s when you have Carousel, Oklahoma, The Sound of Music, and those kinds of Rodgers and Hammerstein kind of shows, South Pacific, that we think that that's a musical. And then you think of Jesus Christ Superstar as the first rock musical, and now you've got musicals that are like Rent or Elton John's Aida. Yeah, and there's what is musical theater today in terms of when you want to do a show, what do you look at?
Well,
what am I going for?
Start with Michael.
Well, we do a season in the summer, and to go back to tell you that Oklahoma was 1942, I believe, instead of the 50s, in Carousel, all of those early Rodgers and Hammerstein. And I think Oklahoma was the turning point in American musical theater. I think everybody believes that. Mm-hmm. And it was the first...
Because of DeMille's choreography?
Well, Agnes DeMille, it was the unbelievable meshing, the collaboration of music, dance, and acting and singing. And no longer was it just, you were talking about in the 1860s, and then you talk about Showboat. Showboat in 1929, well, of course, it's still Showboat. Jerome Kern is very influenced by the European operetta. So it's still not yet, you hear one of the beautiful ballads, Why Do I Love You, It's very, very operetta. Then you get in Can't Help Loving That Man, which is starting to get into the American jazzy sound. You have this back-to-back. And so that's where the American sound starts really coming through, and then Gershwin in the 30s. And then Rodgers and Hammerstein, I thought, brought it to its best point, I have to tell you, as far as Oklahoma and Carousel, where the dialogue was just literally seamlessly goes from acting and speaking right into singing. In the first scene, the first act of Oklahoma only has 3 scenes. Now you get something, then look years later, you get something like, I'll say, Funny Girl. It was a star vehicle. The music, the score is magnificent, but it's not a great show because in the first scene you have like 21 scenes. It's so choppy and whatever. But talking about that, it's just developed, and I think the reason we have the Rents and we have the Wickeds on Broadway and whatever. By the way, those were not my favorite. My favorite was Grey Gardens, which only played about 10 months, and the other one was Lights in the Piazza, was just the most beautiful thing I've seen in years,
Michael,
and was not a huge sell. I could have seen it 100. So, I think it's just those musical theater has always been a reflection of society and what's going on at that time. And then, of course, you have your classical things. And I really believe years from now we'll look back at Light in the Piazza, and it'll have a long, long, long run.
When I was listening to samples of Light in the Piazza on Amazon.com, because I was looking at getting the cast album, I was reading the reviews. I always read the 5 stars and I read the 1 stars. I want to see the very best and the very worst, and I'll make my decision from there. And the reviews that kept coming up about Light in the Piazza people kept saying over and over and over again, thank goodness music has returned to musical theater. And, of course, they named some of the very commercially successful, more rock musical or modern music, the belter type of musicals that have come out since 1990. And I was really surprised because Live in the Piazza, half the songs are in Italian. It's very classical. And I thought, it's very interesting to see that the commercial successes are the big belter musicals or the very modern musicals, and then you have people who still want that classical or trained sound. Actually, I'm going to be doing a show on training, and do we really have to have it? Of course, I say yes, but we'll have some people on. The next show will be on training. Do you find that people are kind of confused as they don't know which shows to be their favorite, or they really like one show but they're not up to snuff, as it were? Like they know they can't perform it. Do you run across that in the university level?
Well, I think every person, is at a certain point in their life when things happen to them or when they're influenced. And I always love to think that ideally great art changes a person's life. And I don't want to sound too romantic about that, but just to give you an example, I took a friend of mine from Taiwan years ago to New York. He's a doctor, extremely intelligent in field of public science and research and all of that. He had never seen a musical, and I took him to see Les Mis. And at the end, I heard him sniffling and fighting back the tears. And when we got to the restaurant at the end, he said, "My life will never be the same." And he explained, and now not everything's meant to do that, but we do hope that some of the stiffer ones are and then of course our life can be changed from just sheer laughter and comedy. So I don't know how to answer that except that my students that I teach don't even know who Fred Astaire was, not at first. They go about they go back about as far as the Phantom. And our students here are very sophisticated. They're all from everywhere, but New Orleans. In fact, they hear my accent and think I'm going to one of the most expensive schools in the United States to be taught by this man who has this Southern accent. But anyway, it's where they are at that time in their life. And until they prepare themselves socially, physically, mentally, everything for what they see and extend that, then everybody has a different take on it.
Go ahead, sorry.
I went to see Wicked because I try to see everything. I thought it would never be over, but other people love it. So, and I'm only thankful for one thing: the lines are around the block because it keeps musical theater alive.
Yeah. Right. Actually, my next question was going to be: do you think there are certain shows that you've done? This is for Sandy too. Sandy, jump on in. That do you think that there are certain shows that have happened at moments in your life where you experienced an art imitating life dynamic?
Oh, yes, all the time with me. I think so, all the time.
What about you, Sandy?
I don't know if it's... I feel such a profound, almost religious connection to theater that it's hard for me to decipher.
Right.
I look and feel and search for it because I'm longing for the intimacy, the connection, the music to come in my pores. I'm searching for excellence. I'm searching for beauty. So I find that in the theater. And I may not always find it in an entire show. I may find it in one song.
One moment.
People will leave the musical that night, let's say, and they'll say, well, they thought it was awful. But if there was one song or one scene, I'm usually pretty happy because I so need it. I'm like a plant needing sunlight. So... And I teach musical theater, but at the high school level. I'm at LaGuardia High School of Music and Art and the Performing Arts, the FAME school.
Yes, the FAME High School. Yes. I was going to get to that. I wasn't leaving you out.
I have such talented kids that one song in one other person's hands might not speak to me, but in some young child's hands, somehow or other the song is reborn. So I find connections daily in my life that inspire me, that make me question how I've always looked at a scene or a musical. They did Ragtime 2 years ago at the school, and I had nothing to do with it. I literally was the house manager and ushered. The production was so moving for these kids, and I know some of the parents. It was double cast, and we have 1,100-seat house. I think we did 8 shows, all sold out. Matter of fact, people fighting to get in. And the audience members, I mean, you could hear a pin drop at the end. And I think one of the reasons it worked so especially well is there's a role in there of a young woman who tries to get rid of her baby, and another woman takes that baby in and is saved. And then later on, this woman is forgiven, and we go on and we end up loving this woman. But as a woman giving up your child, when I first saw it, I had great problems now singing along with her in the rest of the show because she had done something so heinous. But in the arms of a 16, 17-year-old, it took on a whole, she was in over her head. And I gave her the world because of it, of forgiveness and support and love. And I went along completely. And the production was, I mean, every night I felt it resonated, and I felt such a connection with this incredibly eclectic, diverse, socioeconomically diverse also audience, all moved by the same thing that we all shared up on that stage at night. I'm sorry, that's like magic. That's religion. That, to me, that's like going to church.
Absolutely. And, you know, kids today, teenagers today, people in their early 20s, they look to technology to give them that kind of connection. And we're using that kind of connection right now, but you cannot get the same kind of connection from a piece of technology that you get in that reciprocal energy that happens between an audience and a performer, and then back in this round robin of energy when magic is happening and it's a moment, and you can't ever recreate it. So that's just a powerful story. That's amazing.